One of the most underappreciated and overlooked elements of the DCU has to be the casting of its Commissioner Gordon. At the time, the internet went wild when J.K. Simmons was cast as Batman's closest confidant. It was an inspired choice that had some merit to it, because J.K. Simmons had rose to fame in mainstream media through his portrayal of another famous comic book character, making an immediate impression on audiences as Peter Parker's boss, J. Jonah Jameson, in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. This role was instantly iconic, with fans and studio heads alike deciding that he was the definitive Daily Bugle boss, with Simmons going on to play the part again, and 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 again. No, seriously, he really stepped into the role that many times. And if I was a betting man, I'd probably say that there's a good chance it's not the last time we'll ever see or hear him as this character again. He'd also later go on to play the voice of Omni-Man in the Invincible series years later, a role that almost looks like it was inspired by, or maybe more accurately entirely ripped off of, the J. Jonah Jameson character. So there was plenty of reason to cast him in the role of an incredibly iconic comic book character. He's had plenty of experience in such a role before, why not try it again? Except these two characters are considerably different. Their similarities begin and end with older gentleman comic book characters brought to the big screen. These two share nothing in common aside from an actor, which meant despite his previous success, what was asked for him as J. Jonah Jameson wouldn't be asked of him as James Gordon. While Jameson was an over-the-top, angry cartoon that was brought to the real world, Jim Gordon was a much more dignified, well-meaning individual. He was fair and had an unwavering commitment to his pursuit of justice. In a city of darkness and despair, he was a yielding light of hope for that city, on par with the likes of our lead. Despite this, Simmons was up for the role, and truly excelled at all that was asked of him. But unfortunately for us, that wasn't all that much. I don't think that this role goes unspoken of because of how awful it is, or even that it's forgettable. It's instead because there's so little to talk about. He has very few minutes of screen time, and during that time, we only get a vague impression of the character. Like any good Gordon, he stands by the Caped Crusader, even when he's questioned by his peers and underlings. He speaks highly of the hero and defends the Dark Knight to his colleagues. He has an unwavering belief in the man in the mask. He's more than competent at his job and seems to be mostly well respected as he's much later into his run. But aside from this partnership that crosses the bounds into friendship with this Justice Leaguer, there just isn't all that much to the character. Now, to be fair, one could hardly blame the movie makers, as his sole appearance is in the two separate cuts of Justice League, a movie that was already juggling too many characters and plots as is. They were introducing 3 new leads to audiences and following up on 3 characters from previous films, as well as establishing a world-ending threat in of itself. Jim Gordon is just a bit part here, and his inclusion was never gonna amount to that much, at least not in this film. Or these films. The role was cast with the intention of bringing the actor back for future installments, where the character was meant to be expanded upon, further developed, and probably made to play an integral role in planned Batman projects. But sadly, this wouldn't be the case. While follow-up projects were planned, for one reason or another, all had fallen through. Initially, Simmons was scheduled to reprise his role in both the Ben Affleck-led The Batman and mainstay spin-off Batgirl, a movie which was sure to give us a deeper take on Jim Gordon, as his own daughter would be the lead. As a one-off shallow take on the character that is really only viewed in passing, I find this iteration to be very true to form. For the little we see of him, J.K. Simmons embodies Commissioner Gordon, and the writing also doesn't rewrite the character to be something he's not, which isn't something I can say for everybody in this movie universe. Unfortunately, the writing also doesn't write him as, well, much of anything. Ben Affleck is credited as saying that J.K. Simmons' performance was just as strong as his fellow Justice League team members. And for the little bit we see of him, you know what, I would have to agree. He looks like his comic book counterpart, acts like the character from the cartoons, and sounds the way you think the character would sound. It's a damn shame that his talent feels mostly wasted here, through no fault of his own. I truly think if given more screen time and more purpose to the plot, he truly would have been the ultimate Jim Gordon. As of right now, at this present point in time, given the limited knowledge we have of this version of the character, the best that one could say is that he was as good as he could have been, given the circumstances. With all that being said, sadly this is a short video for an actor who stayed in the role for a very short amount of time. With all that being said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see a video on J.K. Simmons' time as J. Jonah Jameson, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
Jameson H or Jameson Q?
Now, before I go, I don't usually do this. I've had a Patreon for a while now, but I've really struggled with what to do with it. Luckily, the time is upon us where I can actually offer you guys exclusive and extended content that I can't make here on the channel. With new restrictions on what kind of content can be monetized or, hell, even shown here on the platform, now's as good a time as ever to be placing my completely unaltered, uncensored, extended videos on my Patreon. I don't want to put my videos behind a paywall, but that's kind of the best place to put them for the time being. So if there was ever a time to give a stranger money on the internet, well, I would like to think that now is that time. Just so everyone knows, all the money I make off my Patreon goes directly back into the channel. Everyone who donates to the Patreon will not be seen as a fan, but rather a producer of said content. And you will be credited as such in the closing credits here on the channel. So if you have the time and $1 to spare, help a guy out. If you can't, I appreciate your time and attention nonetheless.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.